Have you ever had a thought that just wouldn't go away? A thought that comes back again and again, even though you know it's ridiculous. What if I forgot to lock the door? What if my hands aren't really clean? What if I hurt someone without realizing it? This thought haunts you. To make it shut up, you do something. You check once, twice, 10 times. You wash your hands. You repeat words in your head. In a moment, it makes you feel better. But the thought comes back, and it comes back stronger. That's OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. When your mind, instead of helping you live, becomes your enemy. When your own thoughts scare you, and your own actions trap you. Today, we're going to talk about this without judgment, gently, and with some keys to understanding.
George, what you're describing, I know that. Not all the time, but sometimes, especially at night. I check that the door is locked. Then I check it again. Once, twice. Sometimes I get back up in the night because I'm not sure. And I feel ridiculous. I know it's stupid, but I can't help it. Does that mean I have OCD?
Be careful, Emma. Having checking behaviors or small repetitive habits doesn't necessarily mean you have OCD. Everyone has intrusive thoughts from time to time. Everyone sometimes checks their door twice. What makes the difference is the intensity, the frequency, and the suffering it causes you. Real OCD is when these thoughts and rituals take up a lot of time every day, when they stop you from living normally. When you know it's ridiculous, but you can't stop. According to INSERM, OCD often affects young people, sometimes even children, and it's a real illness, not a character flaw. So if you're really suffering, you should see a professional. But what we're going to talk about today is mainly the mechanism, this vicious cycle that turns a thought into a prison.
Explain this vicious cycle to me, because I don't understand why I check the door several times. I know it's locked, yet I do it again.
It's a mechanism that researchers have described very well. First, there is the obsession. It's an intrusive, repetitive thought that causes anxiety. For example, what if I didn't lock the door? This thought isn't rational, but it triggers a real fear. Then, to calm that fear, you do something. That's the compulsion. You check the door. In the moment, you feel better. Your anxiety goes down a little. But the problem is, this relief is temporary. And it reinforces the idea that by checking, you're protecting yourself. The next time the obsession comes back, you want to check even more. The compulsion becomes a habit. And this habit takes up more and more space. People with OCD sometimes spend several hours a day on these rituals. The saddest part is that they know it's ridiculous, but they can't stop. Their mind becomes their enemy.
So the problem isn't the thought itself, but how I respond to it.
Exactly. Intrusive thoughts. Everyone has them. It's normal. Your brain produces thousands of thoughts a day, sometimes strange, sometimes scary. Someone without OCD will think, that's a weird thought, and move on. Someone with OCD, on the contrary, will give that thought a lot of importance. They'll think, why did I think that? Is it serious? Am I dangerous? And this fear will push them to do something to neutralize it. It's this reaction that turns an ordinary thought into an obsession.
Why do some people react like that and others don't?
Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a smoke alarm. Normally, it goes off when there's really a fire, but sometimes the alarm is too sensitive. A little smoke, a bit of dust, and it goes off. OCD is an overly sensitive smoke alarm. Your normal, slightly unpleasant thoughts trigger a maximum alert. You feel in danger. So you do something to turn off the alarm. You check, you wash, you reassure yourself. But the alarm doesn't get fixed that way. It stays too sensitive. And the more you trigger it, the more sensitive it becomes. To fix the alarm, you would need to learn not to react immediately. Let the alarm ring without rushing to turn it off. Gradually, it would recalibrate itself. That's the principle of ERP therapy, exposure with response prevention. You expose yourself to the anxiety-provoking thought without performing the ritual. At first, it's very hard. But over time, the brain learns that the alarm isn't necessary. The danger doesn't exist.
But in the moment, reassuring myself makes me feel good. I feel like it's the best thing to do.
That's the most common mistake, and it's the most deceptive one, because reassuring yourself gives you immediate relief. Your brain loves that. It wants more. But in the long term, it's the worst thing to do. Why? Because every time you reassure yourself, you strengthen the fear. You tell your brain, you were right to be afraid. That thought was really dangerous, and it's thanks to this ritual that you're safe. So next time, the fear will be even stronger, and the ritual even more necessary. It's an addiction to temporary relief. Fred Penzel, a psychologist who specializes in OCD, says something very true. If you want to think about it less, think about it more. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. The more you run from a thought, the more it chases you. The more you try to forget it, the more it comes back. The solution is to learn to let it pass without reacting. It's difficult, but it's the path to recovery.
That's fascinating. But what's really happening in the brain?
The brain of a person with OCD works a little differently. Neuroscientists have observed overactivity in certain areas of the brain, like the orbitofrontal cortex, the striatum, and the thalamus. These areas are involved in error detection and behavior control. In a person with OCD, this error detection is too active. It constantly sends out alarm signals. It's as if the brain is saying, "Warning, something is wrong. Fix it now." And the person obeys by performing compulsions. But there's good news, and it's very important. The brain changes. It has a wonderful property called neuroplasticity. The brain can create new pathways, weaken old ones. When you learn not to react to obsessions, when you resist compulsions, you gradually change these brain circuits. The connections that create anxiety weaken. Other connections, linked to calm and acceptance, strengthen. It's not magic. It takes work. But it's real. The brain can heal itself.
So we're not doomed for life. We can change our brain by changing our reactions.
Exactly. That's the basic principle of cognitive behavioral therapies, CBT. CBT, and especially ERP, exposure with response prevention, is the most effective psychological treatment for OCD. It's not about talking about your childhood. It's about learning new behaviors, breaking the vicious cycle. And thanks to neuroplasticity, these new behaviors transform the brain.
You mentioned Fred Penzel. What do other authors say about OCD?
Fred Penzel, the specialist I quoted, gives essential advice to people with OCD. Always expect the unexpected. That's a way of saying don't try to control everything. Uncertainty is part of life. Learn to live with it. John Hirschfield, another OCD specialist, wrote a book about mindfulness applied to OCD. He explains that instead of fighting obsessive thoughts, you can observe them without reacting. Like clouds passing in the sky. You see them, you don't grab them. This approach helps many people reduce their compulsions. And James Clear, although he doesn't talk directly about OCD, has a phrase that applies perfectly. In Atomic Habits, he says, "You do not rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your systems." Applied to OCD, it gives, "What maintains OCD is not your willpower or your character. It's the system you've put in place, your way of reacting to thoughts. Change the system, and the symptoms will decrease."
These quotes are powerful. They say that we can act, even when we don't control our thoughts.
Yes, OCD is a disease of reaction, not of thought. We don't choose our thoughts, but we can choose how we respond to them.
Let me give you a very simple example. The door one. Tonight, I lock my door. I check once, it's locked. I walk away. But my brain says, "Are you really sure? You need to check again." I check again. It's locked. I walk away again. My brain says, "What if you didn't look properly? What if the key didn't turn all the way? I can check 5 times." In the end, I'm tired, frustrated, and I don't even trust my own eyes anymore.
What you're describing is a very classic case of checking OCD. The problem is, the more you check, the less you trust your memory. The first check, your memory tells you, "It's okay, it's locked." But after the second check, your memory starts to doubt. It confuses the different checks. And the more you check, the more the doubt grows. It's a trap. To get out of it, you would need to stop checking after the first time. Accept the doubt. Live with uncertainty. But it's very difficult, especially if you've been doing this for a long time.
So what I should do is lock the door once and leave even if I'm not sure?
Yes, that's exactly it. That's what therapists call response prevention. You expose yourself to the anxiety, not checking, without doing the ritual. Checking, at first, the anxiety rises. It's uncomfortable, but if you hold on, the anxiety eventually goes down on its own. Your brain learns that there was no real danger, and next time, the anxiety will be a little less strong. That's the habituation process. It takes courage to start, but it works.
I imagine that for people with real OCD, it's not easy at all. But are there simple methods that we can try?
Yes, but be careful. Real, severe OCD requires professional help. What I'm going to give you is a method inspired by CBT and mindfulness. I call it the accept method. It can help with small daily obsessions. A. Acknowledge the thought without fighting it. Don't say, "This thought is horrible. I don't want to have it." Say, "This thought is here. That's all." By acknowledging it, you take away its power. C. Calm your breathing. Anxiety speeds up your breathing. Take 3 slow breaths to calm your body. A calm body helps a calm mind. C. Create distance. Tell yourself, "It's not me who is thinking this thought. It's my OCD talking to me." Separate yourself from the thought. The thought is not an order. E. Expose yourself gradually. If you're afraid you didn't lock the door, check only once. Then walk away. Let the anxiety rise. Hold on for 5 minutes. You'll see, it goes back down. P. Prevent the response. Don't do the ritual. Resist. If you used to check 10 times, check 9 times today. Then 8 times tomorrow. Go down little by little. T. Turn to another activity. To stop ruminating, occupy your mind with something else. Read a book, watch a series, call a friend. Don't just wait for the fear to pass. E. Encourage small victories. Every time you resist a compulsion, celebrate it. Tell yourself, "I am stronger than my OCD." C. Remember, you are not alone. OCD affects many people. Talking about what you're experiencing with a professional or a support group can be very freeing.
Is OCD always checking or hand washing, or are there other forms?
There are many different forms. Contamination OCD, fear of germs, excessive hand washing, symmetry or order, OCD, need for objects to be perfectly aligned. Rumination, OCD, obsessive thoughts about a past event or a moral dilemma. Violent or sexual intrusive thoughts. OCD, fear of harming someone or having inappropriate thoughts. Responsibility, OCD, excessive feeling that you will cause an accident if you don't perform certain rituals. What you need to understand is that the mechanism is always the same. An intrusive thought, an anxiety, a compulsion to calm the anxiety, temporary relief, and the cycle starts again, stronger.
It's scary how some thoughts can take control.
Yes, but remember, they are just thoughts. A thought is not an action. A thought is not a desire. A thought does not define who you are. People with OCD are often afraid of their own thoughts. They think, if I think that, then I must be a monster. But that's wrong. OCD attacks what you value most. It scares you with what matters most to you. If you're a kind person, it will scare you about harming someone. If you're religious, it will scare you about having blasphemed. If you're honest, it will scare you about having lied. It's a liar. It uses your values against you.
That touches me a lot. I have small obsessions, not very serious, but I've already felt ashamed, like I was weird or weak.
That's the worst part of OCD. Shame. Many people with OCD don't dare to see a professional because they are ashamed. They think they're crazy or that they'll come across as weird. But OCD has nothing to do with madness. It's an illness like any other, and it can be treated very well. The sooner you seek help, the sooner you get better. Your identity is not your OCD. You are not a maniac, a weirdo, a control freak. You are a person who suffers from an anxiety disorder, and that person can get better. That person can learn not to react to their thoughts anymore. That person can become free again. Fred Penzel says, "Nothing fixes a thing so intensely in the memory as the wish to forget it. The more you want to chase away a thought, the more it stays. But when you accept that it's there without believing it, it eventually leaves."
So I can decide that my identity is someone who is learning to live with their thoughts, not someone who is controlled by their thoughts.
Exactly. And you build that identity every time you choose not to do the compulsion. Every small victory is a vote. Vote for freedom.
George, I've learned a lot. I didn't know that OCD was so complex and at the same time so well understood by science. I understood that the solution is not to fight the thoughts, but to change how you respond to them, and that the brain can change, thanks to neuroplasticity.
So remember this, Emma. OCD is when your mind becomes your enemy, when it scares you with your own thoughts. But remember, they are just thoughts. A thought is not an order. A thought does not make you a bad person. The path to freedom is not to stop having intrusive thoughts. It's to learn not to react to them. It's to accept uncertainty, fear, discomfort. It's to resist the ritual again and again. Little by little, your brain changes. The old pathways weaken, new ones are created. And one day, you realize that the enemy has become just a passerby. You don't heal from OCD by fighting it. You heal by taming it, by accepting that it's there without obeying it. Freedom is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to act despite the fear.
I'm going to try for my door. Tonight, I'll lock it once, and I'll walk away. Even with the anxiety, I'm going to practice. I'm going to vote for freedom.
Do that. And if one day is too hard, remember, you are not alone. Talk to someone. See a specialist. OCD can be treated, and you can get better.